Hello and welcome to Security Scan. I am Uday Bhaskar. The focus this week is on the battle for Mosul, the last stronghold of the Islamic State, and the possible implications for India in the event that the Islamic State or the Daesh is defeated definitively and forced to flee. Mosul is Iraq's second largest city and had a population of a little under 2 million before the ill-fated US-led war of 2003. Since then, the region has been racked by violence and bloodshed, both sectarian, that pitted the majority Shia against the minority Sunni population of Iraq, and further aggravated by the competing and contradictory interests of the external powers led by the United States and its allies. The Syrian civil war extended into Iraq, and about 3 years ago, the Islamic State or the Daesh became a reality. In June 2014, a caliphate was announced by the Islamic State, and it seized a vast swathe of territory extending from parts of Syria into Iraq. The extreme ideology of the Islamic State and the brutality that it reveled in, recall for instance the television images of beheadings and more, caused considerable anxiety in the region and beyond. For the first time, a non-state entity had acquired the trappings of a state: a sizable geographical area, a subdued population, revenue from oil, a semi-organized militia that saw itself evolving into a military, and most importantly, embedded sectarian support from within the disaffected tribes and ethnic groups of the region. Will the battle for Mosul lead to the defeat of the Islamic State and thereby lead to the stabilization of Iraq? And if scattered, will the ideology of the Islamic State affect and infect South Asia? To discuss this and more, we have an eminent panel as always. Dr.Waiel, Awwad, a noted West Asia expert; Brigadier Sanjay, Agarwal, till recently an advisor to the Home Ministry on left-wing extremism; and Dr. Ajit Singh from the Institute for Conflict Management, a terrorism expert. While if I could turn to you first, Mosul has been going on for more than 2 years. Can you briefly sort of walk us through who is doing what in Mosul?
Well, I think the war on Mosul is not new. I remember when we were with the American, embedded with the American 2003, the first thing the United States did was dissolving the military, dissolving the police security apparatus.
In Iraq.
In Iraq. And de-Ba'athization of the Iraq, which most of these fleet of the Iraqi elites where they with the Saddam Hussein have flown back to their hometown where it was Mosul and Nainawa and all the region of Anbar and that part of Iraq. So they have stayed there because they had no work and they were easy to recruit and recreate more groups where they have fought Al-Qaeda and they create Al-Sahwa, then you had the Naqshbandi, the Ba'athists, everybody was staying in that city. And the city has been on and off with the Peshmerga and the Kurds tried to invade again, they were pushed back. So therefore, the war on Mosul has been on since the American invasion. And in fact, thanks to the American, that 19 of the founding member of IS were inside the American camps, Pakka camp, Kripar camp, Nama camp, and Abu Ghraib, name it, and it is there. So it was made because that was the policy in invading Iraq. It's nothing but to disintegrate Iraq into 3 parts. So therefore, Mosul has been a vital important not only for the Iraqi government that to retain within the Iraq, they wanted a symbolic kind of a war, winning a war on Daesh. And for the American, Obama want to leave a legacy for Hillary Clinton, who is coming for the power, that there is somebody that they have made successful operation inside Iraq and they defeated Daesh. At least the phenomena inside Iraq should be defeated.
That the US objective is to have Mosul back with Iraq and show that as a success.
Yes, that is the declared. The undeclared plan is written by the Clean and Break, the strategy for Reliance 1996. You remember Richard Byrne have written about it.
Sanjay, if I could come to you, can you help us to understand what is the current military dynamic in Mosul?
Well, as of now, and in three of the four main Sunni Arab provinces of Iraq, namely Anbar, Diyala, and Salahuddin, except for small pockets, they are not there. Now, specifically to the Mosul operation on now, a preliminary operation to retake Qayyara Air Base, which is about 60 kilometers south of Mosul, was undertaken end June, early July. So Qayyara Air Base has been refurbished. After refurbishing, it can now handle all the coalition cargo aircraft and is functioning as the logistic base for the current attack. Now, this attack was announced at 2 a.m. on 17th October and has progressed very broadly. First, if you see a map, Kurds are to the east of Mosul and they are closing on to Mosul from three flanks or three sub-directions towards the periphery of Mosul. And from the south, we have the Iraqi forces coming in.
And they are being supported by US air power.
Now, as regards the US, of course, the air power is there. Of course, the artillery is there. But our viewers would like to know also that the Americans have forward air controllers, drone operators, and other people, including from the 101 Airborne Division, which was there in 2003, embedded right up to battalion level. Also, they have special forces, and rightly they are maintaining the ambiguity of the total number, which is loosely said to be in Iraq about 5,000.
So one presumes that with all this kind of military pressure now, the real battle will be in the city of Mosul. But hold that thought, we'll come back to what will happen within the city. Ajit, if I can bring you on now at this stage, everyone is concerned about the ideology of the Islamic State. Now, particular to South Asia and India, what is the assessment? Because for the last couple of months, I would say, there have been a number of reports, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, various other parts of India, that one or two individuals have been apprehended who claim some kind of empathy or affiliation with the Islamic State. And most recently, there was one of these persons who said that the IS operator who was responsible for Paris attack is my guru, is my teacher. You know, this kind of, shall we say, public claim. What do you make of the IS in India?
According to the government reports, there were around 54 arrested IS cadres. In fact, those who were showing allegiance to IS till July. And now the reports are saying around 60 odd people have been arrested. And to the maximum, around 60 odd people have joined IS. Out of those, around 6 or 7 had died. So out of 17 million population in India, Muslims, and India being the second largest Muslim populated country, these are not even fringe. This is such a small number, so we should not be concerned about IS that IS threat in India. In India, what is we should be concerned more about the general threat, but that is how to improve our internal security situation. Not only bothered about IS, we should be more bothered about Pakistan-based terror groups which can be a threat and which are a threat. Because IS, as of till now, IS has not made any successful attack. In fact, it is way back in 2001 or 2, Osama bin Laden himself had called for Indian Muslims to join Al-Qaeda. Then also they could not get any support in India. Indian Muslims are totally different from what we see the Muslims in Arab countries and from where the IS is operating and IS has got hold. So to find support in India, in my opinion, is not that much easy.
I'll come back to you. You mentioned Pakistan.
Yes.
Now, just over the last few days, there were reports about violence in Pakistan where some intelligence officials were killed and responsibility was taken by the Pakistan chapter, if you will, of the Islamic State. But I'll come back to you on that. While can I request you to look at the Turkey role? Because one of the very, shall we say, interesting aspects of the Mosul operation is how Turkey has positioned itself in relation to Iraq. And Iraq in turn has said that their sovereignty cannot be compromised. So can you just help us to understand the Turkish role in Iraq, Syria?
See, the whole issue is actually the new Ottoman Empire. Turkish Erdogan feel himself that he is the de facto Khalifa. In fact, Baghdadi is only a symbolic, because Erdogan ambition is to make sure that he can reign on the region and is also reign more into the European and the Arab countries. So his interest has always been there, eyeing Mosul and eyeing also the Aleppo. So therefore you can see the shift of his work. And actually we in Syria call him that Daesh is made in Turkey. It is in fact the Turkish who has shelter, who had given them the support. You remember when there were 39 of the consulate of the Turkish inside, they all came out with the ties, with the clothes, with the clean shaved, and they were received by the government officials. So therefore, it has always been seen that Turkey has really sheltered and opened the border, like Pakistan in the making, with the whole border with Syria and Iraq, they opened it and infiltration mercenaries came. So Turkey wanted to make sure that the Kurd does not get Mosul, they don't get Kirkuk. There is no question of oil resources for the future division of Iraq. And secondly, they also wanted to make sure that this part of Iraq, which is eyeing it, the resources is belong to Turkey, not belonging to Iraqi people.
So, but then would it be fair to say that Turkey, Iran and Iraq share one political objective, which is to prevent the equivalent of an independent or an autonomous Kurdistan?
Everybody, yes,
all three of them.
It is
but I'll come back to you on this
Syria
because even Russia has an interest. But before that, Sanjay, can you sort of look at the dynamic now within Mosul? Now, we presume that because of the military forces ranged against the Islamic State, there will be an asymmetry in a conventional sense, and they will be forced to flee. What happens in the city? Because there's talk about suicide bombers and the fact that the Islamic State has been there for 2 years. So, do you see this? What is this, a hybrid war that we're going to see?
No, the military situation in Mosul as it is today and how it will evolve largely is like this. This operation is going to be conducted in phases. The first phase has already started, which is the isolation of Mosul. Isolation basically is essentially an ever-tightening encirclement to cut off ingress and egress. The second phase thereafter would be the action at the periphery of Mosul town itself. The noose is tightened till there. And it is here that we would have reconnaissance in force, prophylactic fire to attract the jihadi fire so that they can reveal their positions, so that our various means of delivery can neutralize those targets. In phase 3 will come what you spoke about, the actual fighting within Mosul city. Now, it is too early to say how stiff a fight the Daesh will put up. If they feel it is worth it to fight and die for propaganda purposes, casualties are going to be very high, infrastructure is going to be razed, there's going to be a major humanitarian crisis over there. However, if the ISIS is offered or can negotiate a discrete escape route which exists to its west to Syria and onwards to Raqqa, its headquarters in Syria, in that case, the fall could come very fast. But seeing that Mosul is their largest territorial asset, and a caliphate needs territory to be a caliphate, it could swing either way. Now, this is the third phase, and the final and fourth phase would be the mopping up operations, which would involve also the management of the civilian population and demining the area.
So, you are being cautious, saying that it could go either way at this stage. I think that's fair. I won't ask you to make a prediction. But Ajit, I want to come back to you. If you allow me to play devil's advocate, you seem to be of the view that as far as India is concerned, we are insulated for a variety of reasons from the ideology of the Islamic State. But the empirical evidence seems to suggest that as far as the rest of the world is concerned, in the last 1 year, there have been a number of terror-related incidents where the perpetrators have indicated their allegiance or preference for the ideology of the Islamic State. We saw this in North America, we saw this in Europe, we've seen this in many parts of West Asia, and as I said, it's happened in Pakistan. And there are a couple of minor groups that have said the same thing in Bangladesh. So how do you explain this footprint of the Islamic State outside of India?
If we start with Bangladesh, what we find is that the government is also saying, and even because for any terror outfit to operate inside a country, it needs to have a command control structure. But all these attacks which have taken place in Bangladesh, we don't see there is a direct correlation between because IS has its headquarters in Iraq, Syria, there is no direct contact between the leaders in Iraq, Syria and Bangladesh. So what is happening is people, smaller groups, those who have lost their prominence, like in Bangladesh, JMB, JMJB, all they had lost their capability because of Hasina's coming to power and taking strong actions against these people. So they try to revive, and IS has become the flavor of the day. So smaller groups carrying out one or two smaller attacks, and they are just saying that, okay, we are in alliance with the Islamic State. And Islamic State is not going to denounce that because it is helping them. Okay, without doing anything on the ground, they are finding it that, okay, our presence is spreading. Similar, but when we go to the West, because the number of recruits from the West are very high. For instance, Russia, more than 1,700 people had joined IS. In UK and in Germany also. And there the radicalization, the state has become more radical. In Germany, in France, the state, and I have talked to many people in France and Germany, those who are in India also. What they are saying is they are very much worried about the radicalization within this country. And that is why the Islamic State has more presence there. Coming back to Pakistan, Pakistan is in a situation where there is a vacuum now because of this Zarbiya operation. This Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan is being targeted. So now more of the Tehreek-e-Taliban people are showing allegiance to the Islamic State. That is what is happening in Afghanistan in the Nangarhar province. Most of the fighters who are with the Islamic State are Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan cadres. So,
no, I'm just saying that one of the things that you observe, for instance, at the Brig summit,
yes,
even China and Russia found it necessary to have a reference to the Islamic State, Daesh, in terms of their own security concerns. But hopefully we'll come back to the subject now or even later. While you wanted to say something on this?
Well, I think the end of the IS phenomenon in the Middle East and West Asia, Syria or Iraq, which is going to happen by 2017, is not the end of radicalization and instability, because there are major mushrooming with the groups and all. There is revival of Al-Qaeda. Maybe they have failed in Syria, but there are revival of Al-Qaeda not only inside South Asia, but also in the Caucasus region, in the Chinese province, because if you look, whoever have more than 2 digits of terrorists inside Syria, mercenaries, are actually usually the government is in trouble, because these people will go back. Now we have reports coming that Apache is escorting Al-Qaeda, escorting Daesh people from Iraq into Mosul, 505 kilometers, flew all the way to Raqqa. 7 hours drive, more than 500 convoys with the American cover, and there are more than 7,000 already being shifted to Afghanistan. So if these securities intelligence input are correct, then you have to tighten your belt for the coming.
But you foresee that this problem will continue. Why I'm asking is that at the end, the embedded part in this entire conflict is also the centuries-old Shia-Sunni kind of political rivalry. So given the locus that we ascribe to Saudi Arabia and Iran, and the proxies behind them, for instance, the United States and Russia, the Russian support in Syria. So you expect that this is going to play out for a much longer time, because I do not see any rapprochement on the cards.
I think you have touched the crux of the problem. It's in the wider perspective. Yes, there is going to be there is a wider perspective looking at the scene that the regional players of the United States supporters, allies in the region, are creating the havoc, because United States is losing its hegemony in the region, and there is no more unipolarity world. Uday, and this is the problem here. The Americans are not willing to accept. So the regional players are making sure that they are able to take over from what the American is lefting over. And that's not going to happen, because what is going to be seen as a Sunni Shia, yes, at the long run, because Turkey is now joining hand with Qatar, with Saudi Arabia. On the fight, they wanted to give it that tag of a Sunni Shia sectarian war. At the current situation, the Iraqi government is giving it the secular Iraqi government that they wanted to gain back their territories as an Iraqi homogeneous society, which is unlikely, because the American whole plan in the region is disintegration, making it into small state, into ethnic lines and all. So therefore, there are going to be more. It's a domino effect.
So we
Syria,
will see
Egypt,
more conflict and more violence ahead of us.
Absolutely, because these people can only survive in Saudi Arabia and in Jordan, not in Syria or in Iraq.
The battle for Mosul is likely to be bitterly contested, and it will be costly in terms of lives lost and people displaced. However, the final military outcome is not likely to result in a desired political end state, namely a stable Iraq that can protect its citizens and its territorial sovereignty. There are too many stakeholders pursuing different objectives: the Shia-Sunni divide on one hand, and the ethnic fissures that pit the interests of the Arab against the non-Arab, which includes the Iranians, the Kurds, and the Turks, as also the US-Russia tension on one hand, and that of Saudi Arabia versus Iran, and as we have noted, the orientation that Turkey has now adopted in relation to the internal discord in Iraq. If mixed metaphors could be invoked, Mosul is the tip of a murky iceberg in the blood-soaked sand of Iraq. Expelling the Islamic State is the current tactical focus, but it is the ideology associated with the Daesh that may have the more corrosive impact in the months ahead. Recent events over the last few days point to this exigency, and India would have to monitor the Mosul fallout carefully. On that note, allow me to thank my guests, Dr. Awwad, Brigadier Agarwal, and Dr. Ajit Singh. And thank you for watching Security Scan. Goodbye.